Olá, sejam bem-vindos a mais uma ATPC da área de linguagens. O tema de hoje será a Sala de Aula Invertida. Nossa formação traz a seguinte pauta: os objetivos da formação, que daqui a pouquinho a gente mostra para vocês, a origem dessa metodologia, como se deu a sua implementação, uma entrevista com John Bergman, que vocês vão ver daqui a pouquinho, tem um papel importantíssimo nessa metodologia. Vamos falar sobre os 4 pilares, trazer uma sugestão de prática, propor um desafio para os professores, depois teremos um momento de interação. Vamos falar sobre os benefícios da sua aplicação, relembrar sobre a disponibilidade dos materiais que utilizamos nas nossas ATPCs e apresentar as referências desse nosso estudo de hoje. Os nossos objetivos da formação de hoje estão pautados em refletir sobre o conceito da metodologia ativa Sala de Aula Invertida, aplicar as técnicas dessa metodologia aliada ao Currículo Paulista para gerar o engajamento dos estudantes ao propor que se tornem personagens ativos em seu processo de aprendizagem. Nessa formação, como vocês já viram, nós vamos conversar mais sobre a Sala de Aula Invertida, também denominada Flipped Classroom, refletindo sobre os seus conceitos e propondo a aplicação de suas técnicas. No que diz respeito à sua origem, há uma dicotomia entre o seu surgimento e o seu desdobramento. A origem remonta ao ano de 1996, quando foi aplicada em uma universidade nos Estados Unidos, numa disciplina de microeconomia. Enquanto sua efetivação e disseminação como prática pedagógica em outras instituições se deu apenas em 2007. Vamos agora acompanhar uma entrevista com o professor John Bergman.
Hi, my name is Paula Sicarelli. I'm here with John Bergman. Thank you, John, for being here with us.
It's great to be here.
And in this Educa Talks, we're going to talk about flipped classroom. John, how does it work, flipped classroom?
Well, flipped classroom is a simple idea. It's a educational framework that enables educators to reach every student. That's the critical piece, reach every student. But the flipped approach essentially inverts the traditional model by introducing the course content before class. And then the class time is transformed into a place of active learning where students might be doing project-based learning. They might be doing inquiry or experiments or case bases or simulations or role-playing, or maybe something as simple as just practicing problems. There's so many things you can do. The key thing is to make the classroom space active. Flipped learning is all about the class time, or something we call the group space time. That's what makes it magical. Some people think flipped learning is this thing about the videos. No. It's about what happens in the classroom. That's the key.
How should I do flipped learning? Like, do I need special rooms? Do I need special teachers? Do I need special students?
It's a simple process. You don't need anything special at all. You just need the right mindset. It's all about how you think about education. The idea is to not do whole group lecture anymore, but to record that using some type of recording device. Or sometimes, remember I said at the beginning, it's where you introduce course content before class. That can be in the form of text. It doesn't have to be in the form of a video. So you introduce that stuff, the lower content, if you will, the introductory stuff. If you think from Bloom's taxonomy, it's the lower levels of Bloom's. You introduce that stuff, and then in class, that's where you do the more active learning things. It depends on the lesson. Some lessons you should do a project. Some lessons you should do an experiment. Sometimes a discussion. Sometimes it depends on the lesson.
Great. So, what are like the most common mistakes that you see in flipped classroom?
Well, I'll just list off a few off the top of my head. I've seen people make flipped, if they're doing flipped videos, that's very common, is to do video. That's probably 80% of flipped learning happens with a video. They make their videos too long. So short, one topic, really to the point. It's really critical. In fact, I usually give a number, is take the age of your student, and that's the maximum number of minutes that your video should be, and never go over 15. So even if you're teaching 30-year-old adults, never over 15 minutes. So short is the key. In fact, really like 7 or 8 minutes is probably more ideal for most students. Maybe younger students even shorter. So I'd say that's a mistake. Another mistake I see is people, the biggest question people ask about flipped learning is, what if the students don't do the work? And then they come to class and what do I do? And that's kind of an interesting answer, is that it's turned out that that's not been as big a problem as people think. You've got to hold students accountable. You've got to know if they did the work or not. So you've got to check to see if they did. And there's now tools that monitor, say, how long they read text or if they watched a video. So you can monitor them. But you can also, one good best practice is that you make your own content instead of using stuff on YouTube or whatever, because they connect more with teachers, right? They connect with, it's about relationships and connections. Or maybe the big one is if you, for example, let's say the very first time you do this, you experiment, and you're going to fall when you first do this. What I see teachers do is they discover that maybe half their students didn't watch the video or read the text. And so then they go and they lecture because I've got to teach the stuff. And so what they've just told every student who watched it that they didn't need to, and those who didn't need to, who didn't, they don't have to. So that's a huge mistake. You've got to hold your guns, stick with it, and as you do, it'll change the game. And it's changing lives. Flipped learning is amazing. It's the best educational innovation in the last 20 years. I just said that, but that's actually not a quote from me. It's a quote from one of the leading researchers in the world on active learning, Robert Talbert. He said flipped learning is the single most significant educational innovation in the last 20 years. So,
I believe that.
So you want to change your class, you got to flip it.
Yeah. Here, like in Brazil, we don't have like a very good internet. So what teachers could do with like
Can be done. So, we started this in 2007 in a rural school in the mountains of Colorado. And 30% of our kids didn't have the internet. So we had to solve this problem at the beginning of this whole thing. So we discovered that our students at least had one piece of technology at home. They had a DVD player. So we took our videos and we burned them onto a DVD. So they went home and they put it into their DVD player and they watched the videos for our students who didn't have access. Since then, there's lots of other ways. If a student has a mobile phone of some kind, you can get the videos not online but offline to them through like a micro SD cards. There's also now cheaper MP4 players. They already have. You can again download them and no internet required. There's ways to make it happen. You have to get creative, but it can be done.
Can you tell us about one case that you think that is the best case or the best example of the classroom?
I'll give you one example, and not just the best, but it's a very good one. It's at Harvard Medical School. I was visiting Dr. Richard Schwartzstein's class. He invited me to come there. By the way, Harvard Medical School, the entire school is flipped. It says something, if Harvard Medical School is flipping, that says something. But the students had done some pre-work. It was a hematology class, that's bloods. And as they'd walked in, they'd done the pre-work, and they're in tables of 4. And Dr. Schwartzstein essentially said, all right, I actually back up. He throws up on this PowerPoint, he shows up a screen and says, patient came to you, he's complaining about this, you did these tests, so he just gave him a case, it's called. It's a case-based, is what he calls it. So he gives him a case, and then the doctors, the medical students, then got a piece of paper out and worked silently for 3 or 4 minutes, a piece of paper, and they're writing down what they think the patient has. And then I forget how he said it, but it's like phase 2 happens, and the room gets really loud, and the students are now having conversations in their tables of 4, and you're arguing that he has one type of blood disease, and I'm saying no, he has leukemia, and then the other person, and then we're having a debate at our table about what we think is wrong with the patient. And then it gravitates for 5 or 7 or 8 minutes, something like that, and then all of a sudden we have a whole group discussion. were 60 maybe students in the room, and we're having a debate about what do we think is wrong with the patient, and then what do we need to do. And they come to a conclusion as a whole class, and then I think something really powerful. Dr. Schwartzstein pulls up a chair next to one young doctor, and he says, okay, I'm going to play the patient, and you get to play the doctor. As it turns out, he had a bad form of leukemia, and the prognosis was bad, and you have to tell me if I have leukemia and what the options are. And this is now the human piece, right? Because it's one thing to say somebody has leukemia, it's hard to tell someone they have leukemia. So case-based peer instruction is kind of what he calls it. Then he threw in a little bit of role-playing at the end.
This is the kind of thing that anyone can do, because it's like you don't need special furniture or nothing like that.
A bunch of tables and kids talk. And all they did, I talked with the students. You know, I was free to just move around and talk with some of the students, and they'd done some pre-work. There's a little video on different types of leukemia or something like that, and there were some readings that they had to do. That was their pre-work, and they came to class. In fact, nothing that was interesting about that setting. I don't know if this is true here in Brazil, but in the U.S., it's usually not required for students to attend class in institutions of higher education, medical schools, for example. So I went up to one young man and I said, why are you here? I mean, you don't have to be here. Why did you come? And he turned and he said, I'd be the biggest idiot in the world if I didn't come. This is the best thing I do to prepare myself to be a doctor. So he didn't have to be there, but he chose to be there. In fact, the room was full. You know, I compare this. I was recently on a trip to one of the largest universities in the world. I won't mention it. And I got a chance to tour their lecture halls. And they were completely almost empty. I walked into one room, and there were supposed to be 200 and some odd students in there, and there were 7. But the teacher, what's she doing? Lecturing. Because you see, they stream and record it, and the kids say, oh, why would I go to class? It's just recorded. And then actually turns out, I turned to my host, I said, what percentage of them actually watch it? Because of course you can monitor that if they're recording it. And he said 20%. So only 20% are even paying attention to the lectures anymore. So why do we keep doing it? It's stupid. Higher education is broken. It needs to change. Flipped learning is the answer.
I believe that too. Thank you very much, John, for being here, for accepting our invitation to come here to Brazil to participate at the sthe from ABED. And thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Como afirma Bergman, para colocar em prática a sala de aula invertida, não é preciso obrigatoriamente a utilização da tecnologia.
Flip, em inglês, significa virar, daí a tradução para a palavra invertida. Nessa nova função destinada a cada participante do processo, encontram-se os 4 pilares que embasam o conceito de sala de aula invertida. Vamos a eles. Ambiente flexível. Mescla o ensino online e o presencial. Espaços adaptáveis em que o estudante escolhe onde, quando e como aprende. Cultura da aprendizagem. O professor deixa de ser a fonte primária de conhecimento, transferindo o foco para a participação ativa do estudante, e utiliza o tempo de aula para aprofundar os tópicos e criar oportunidades de aprendizado. Conteúdo intencional. O estudante é incentivado a adquirir conhecimento para além de fatos isolados, estabelecendo conexões de maneira organizada. Educador profissional. À primeira vista, o papel do professor na sala de aula invertida pode parecer menos importante do que o método tradicional de ensino. Porém, este pensamento é equivocado, pois o educador assume papel de mentor e mediador, fornecendo feedback construtivo para os seus alunos, além de refletir sobre a qualidade do seu trabalho no processo de aprendizado.
Trazemos agora uma sugestão de prática. Que tal buscar uma situação de aprendizagem do segundo semestre do seu componente curricular e aplicá-la com as técnicas da sala de aula invertida? Oferecemos a seguinte proposta. Você, professor, apresenta o tema de uma situação de aprendizagem que será desenvolvida. Indica as fontes de pesquisa que são variadas, desde o próprio caderno do aluno, como também sites e até um material preparado por você. Veja que é imprescindível que haja também uma versão impressa para atender aos estudantes que não têm acesso à internet. Então, você orienta os estudantes para que estudem o tema em casa. Feito isso, na sala de aula, você, professor, por meio de perguntas norteadoras, deve incentivar os estudantes a exporem os conhecimentos que adquiriram em suas pesquisas, bem como estimular novas formas de pensar sobre o tema a partir das dúvidas que surgirem na abordagem, mediante debates e consolidando os saberes acerca do tema estudado.
Esta é uma sala de aula tradicional. O professor fica na frente e os alunos assistem e escutam. Você reconhece isso porque provavelmente foi a maneira como você foi ensinado a vida inteira e como seus pais foram ensinados antes de você. Mas existem vários problemas nesse modelo de ensino. Nem todos os alunos aprendem da mesma velocidade, então alguns ficam para trás. Enquanto alguns alunos aprendem melhor escutando, outros talvez aprendam melhor fazendo. Significa que os professores nem sempre conseguem fazer o melhor trabalho. Mas existe outra forma. A sala de aula invertida, Flipped Classroom, resolve esses problemas e faz o aprendizado ficar mais pessoal. Primeiro, o professor faz um vídeo que mostra o conteúdo que ele normalmente ensina na classe. Então, ele compartilha isso online com os alunos, que podem assistir antes da próxima lição. Isso deixa o professor livre para passar atividades que ajudam a aplicar o conhecimento. Os alunos podem voltar a assistir os vídeos quantas vezes eles quiserem e voltarem para a sala com perguntas para o professor. Então, o acompanhamento da sala de aula não é mais um problema. Os alunos podem acessar o vídeo a qualquer momento usando aparelhos móveis, dando a eles a habilidade de serem mais independentes no aprendizado. Em vez de sentar e ouvir, os alunos podem passar o tempo de aula aplicando conhecimentos de forma mais prática. E os professores são livres para passar o tempo trabalhando com os alunos, dando a eles suporte e atenção individual.
Propomos agora que busque nos cadernos do currículo de seu componente curricular uma situação de aprendizagem para desenvolvê-la na prática. Pedimos que participe pelo chat para que os demais colegas se enriqueçam com a troca de experiências. Você já conhecia essa metodologia? Já teve a oportunidade de colocá-la em ação em suas aulas? Se sim, compartilhe as experiências bem-sucedidas. Se ainda não a utilizou, como pensa em colocá-la em prática?
We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me were meant to be outdoors, forever free. You and me, meant to be in the great out.
Veja agora, segundo Sasaki, os benefícios educacionais que a metodologia da sala de aula invertida proporciona. E gostaríamos de lembrar para vocês que todos os materiais utilizados em todas as nossas ATPCs estão disponíveis em uma turma no Google Classroom. Se você ainda não faz parte dessa nossa turma, por favor, acesse por meio do código que aparece na tela. E logo na sequência, iremos disponibilizar aqui um tutorial para auxiliá-lo no acesso à turma.
Tudo bom, meus queridos? Então esse vídeo é ensinando como que vocês participam de uma turma no nosso tão conhecido Google Sala de Aula, também conhecido como Classroom. Como a gente vai ver aqui, ó, tá? E ele já aponta até a setinha lá pra cima, ó. Quer dizer que eu não participo de nenhuma turma. Então, ó, crio participe de sua turma. Vocês clicam em mais, clicam em participar da turma, vão colar o código qual o professor de vocês repassou e clicam em participar, certo? Nesse presente momento está sendo feita a inscrição de vocês na turma. Pronto, aqui nós estamos na turma com as nossas 3 abinhas, mural, atividade e pessoas. Então é assim que vocês participam de uma turma. Aqui no mural vocês podem ter toda a visualização de todos os recados deixados pelo professor de vocês, bem como atividades, lembretes e tudo mais, certo?
Registramos as referências bibliográficas para que você, professor, possa aprofundar seus estudos e aprimorar sua prática docente. Reforçamos a importância de registrar a presença na sede. Agradecemos a participação e desejamos um bom trabalho.